we always found the half-eaten bodies.
I was really shocked when I saw the tracks of the animal which had killed that child.
In 1996, a reign of terror swept through northeastern India. Night after night, an insatiable killer stalked the children of Uttar Prudesh. No one knew if the murderer was man or beast.
We don't know when or where it will strike next.
No one knew why children were being killed, or if it would ever stop.
Our job is to kill this man-eater.
In this rural corner of India, people endure the heavy burden of poverty. They work tirelessly to carve a simple living from an ancient land. But the struggle to survive has become even harder. The tranquil fields that have always sustained them now shelter a deadly enemy. Despite the danger, villagers must work the sea of crops that surround them. Everyone keeps a silent vigil, watching for a killer they have never seen. A killer that is stalking their children. No one knows when or where it will strike next. Armed rangers scour familiar terrain in search of an unknown killer. But despite round-the-clock patrols, dozens of innocent children have been killed. Those who have survived its deadly assault can offer few clues to the killer's identity, except the telltale scars of a vicious attack.
This is first group. First canine, second canine, third canine, fourth was missing. Fourth one यहाँ बीच में कहीं रहा होगा, ये slip कर गया.
5-year-old Bablu was attacked within feet of his home, then dragged 50 yards before being released.
हाँ, मतलब ये 50 yards से हम होगा, या more than 50 yards.
खाना खाने में दुखता है?
Does it hurt when you eat?
रोज ऐसे सोने में दुख
Does it hurt when you sleep on this side?
करवट लेके इधर सोने से?
His bloody shirt tells part of the story a young boy cannot bring himself to remember. But the men pursuing the killer are losing the battle.
Only thing that we can do what we are doing, and we are doing as sincerely as we can.
Whatever is stalking the children of Uttar Prudesh moves at will through fields that blanket the regions of Pratapgarh and Jaunpur. It was here, in the tiny village of Daryaganj, that one of India's most chilling murder mysteries began. As the sun touched the horizon, a group of children played in the fields at the edge of the village. It was March 17th, 1996. As they did every day, mothers worked while they watched their children play. A mother asked her son to fetch a bundle of grass, not knowing that danger lurked nearby. There was no sound, no sign that anything was wrong. But Ankit Kumar never returned. The boy's parents raised the alarm, and hundreds joined in the search. It was Ankit's father who picked up his son's trail.
We found his sweater. And when we went the other way, we found some torn and bloody clothes.
The search went on all night. Everyone desperately hoped to find Ankit alive, perhaps asleep under a tree. At first light, his parents' worst nightmare came true.
We found only his hand and his head. We wrapped them in a cloth and brought him home.
We are still afraid because we can't see who's doing this. Nobody can stay outside. Who knows what will happen?
Patrols were set up around the perimeter of the village. But the killer moved on, stalking other villages along the river. The government responded, detailing men to cover a wide range of territory. Still, 5 more children were lost over the next 2 weeks. The killer executed the classic moves of an ambush predator. Using available cover, it silently stalked its victims, attacked suddenly, and then vanished without a trace. The rangers adopted a proven strategy, one traditionally used to trap tigers and other predators. They tried to encircle their quarry and flush it out. But the plan never seems to work. Instead, the men are left with a recurring tale of tragedy. Everyone is aware of the threat, but there is little they can do to protect their children. Men are up against a killer that moves like a phantom in the night.
Next, authorities turn to the man who tracked down the infamous man-eating tigers of Dudhwa. Dr. Singh's investigation leads him...
Bordering the villages were stained with the blood of 7 children. Desperate for help, the authorities turned to the one man in India they believed could catch the mysterious killer. Wildlife warden Dr. R.L. Singh.
I felt that I have been given a very important assignment and I must do everything to solve it.
Dr. Singh is a specialist in India's wild places and the animals that dwell there. He knows the habits of big predators and how to catch them when they turn deadly. In 1981, over 100 people had been killed and eaten in India's Dudhwa National Park. It was Singh who tracked and killed the 3 man-eating tigers responsible for the deaths. But Dr. Singh was confronting the toughest challenge of his career. Tigers don't live in this part of Uttar Prudesh. He was facing an unknown adversary in a deadly race against time. This is a land rich in wildlife. From India's lowlands to her rainforests, the country is home to a stunning array of creatures. India have always accepted and sometimes even worshipped the animals they live with. But more and more wilderness has been transformed into pastures and fields. And in Uttar Prudesh, it seemed that peaceful coexistence was giving way to deadly conflict. For Dr. Singh, the stakes were enormous. Children were being murdered, and the public was losing its tolerance for wild animals. Singh began his investigation by building a profile of possible man-eaters in the region. The Indian wolf. The wolf prefers to hunt at night. Among the most versatile of all predators, wolves study their prey and capitalize on weaknesses they observe. Wolves prefer to eat fresh meat, but a single wolf rarely consumes more than 10 pounds of food at a time. There's been just one documented report of man-eating wolves in India, and that was in 1981 in the neighboring state of Bihar. The Indian striped hyena. Little is known about this elusive carnivore. Like its African relative, India's hyenas are opportunistic and generally feed at night. Known primarily as scavengers, they are also accomplished hunters. In India, they have sometimes been accused of man-eating, and recent eyewitness accounts described an animal with stripes. It was clear what Singh had to do. He ordered his men to patrol the region for hyenas. They had orders to shoot on sight. But in spite of their searches, not a single hyena was found. And the number of bodies discovered in the fields climbed steadily to 15. Digging for clues to the killer's identity, Singh returned to the scene of the first attack. He found a village still living in fear. Singh questioned the mother of Ankit Kumar. She was among the last to see her young son alive.
Right there.
Did you see what happened?
No, but this boy was playing here and he saw it dragging him. Of all my sons, he was the smartest. He talked a lot. He was healthy. He looked like he was 4 or 5 years old.
Still consumed with grief, she had little hard evidence to offer.
Of all the kids in the entire village, such a boy.
We'll be right back with more Geofiles.
Singh came away from Darya Ganj with few answers. But he was certain the killer could move anywhere undetected, and that each successful attack might only encourage the next. Already people were afraid to leave their homes after dark. They felt the only safe place for their children was inside. But the villagers of Uttar Prudesh had no idea how cunning an enemy they faced. For this was a killer that would follow its prey indoors. Now the killer was snatching children from their beds in the dead of night. Singh's worst fears were being confirmed. The killer was getting bolder and bolder.
We felt defeated, and we also realized that we are dealing with an animal which is much more cunning, clever, and is able to anticipate our moves.
The killer was randomly stalking villages along the river. In just 3 months, it had attacked 26 children, killing 15. Though he was still unable to identify his quarry, Singh had noticed something odd. In nearly every case, the killer had eaten only half its victim, but hyenas rarely waste that much. Singh began a process of elimination. If it wasn't hyenas, what else could it be? As other possibilities began to take shape, the case would take a surprising and terrifying turn. Singh was determined to follow his instincts. He canvassed nearly every village that experienced an attack, and at last another suspect emerged.
They used to live in the jungle.
Now wolves come near the village at night to take our goats.
They came in the night.
But Singh knew little about wolves, so he set out to learn everything he could. More than 30 types of wolves inhabit the earth. They vary in size and color from the white wolf of the Arctic to the gray wolves of North America. Wolves live in family groups called packs that are usually dominated by 2 animals, the alpha male and female. This pair leads the pack and are the only wolves that breed. In the spring, the alpha female gives birth to a litter of 4 to 7 pups. Wolves are devoted parents. Over the next several months, they will feed their young and teach them essential survival skills. Wolves are endangered throughout much of the world, but in India they are legally protected. Most of what is known about the Indian wolf has been discovered by one man, Dr. Y.V. Jalla. But Jalla disagreed with Dr. Singh's suspicions.
I believed that the wolves were innocent, and I wanted to prove them so. A wolf is a very shy, secretive, elusive creature who avoids humans on all accounts. It's more likely that a leopard or a hyena were responsible for these killings than wolves. The chances of them being wolves were remote, extremely rare.
Coming up, Dr. Singh hits a roadblock on his quest to stop the killing. Without hard evidence, he cannot persuade villagers or the authorities that the wolves are to blame.
They call them our wolves.
According to Jalla, an adult wolf usually makes a kill every 3 days. But if the carcass is disturbed by people, it won't return to the scene of the kill. Instead, it will move on to new hunting grounds. It's an effective strategy, honed by instinct and a remarkable ability to adapt. Was it possible that wolves were using this strategy to hunt children in Uttar Prudesh? As Dr. R.L. Singh pored over the details of each attack, a pattern began to emerge. On average, the attacks were occurring 3 days apart. The killer rarely struck twice in the same village, and none of the victims was completely consumed. It all seemed to be leading to an inescapable conclusion.
All of these clues indicated that wolf appears to be the main suspect.
But without hard evidence, scientists, government authorities, and villagers rejected Singh's theory that the killer was a wolf.
Villagers admit that wolf is found in good number in this area, but never seen it attacking children. So they feel that it has lived here since ages. And if it hasn't attacked their children, why should it do it now?
But Singh had uncovered more than a suspect. He'd also uncovered a motive. In Uttar Prudesh, wolves live close to livestock and villages, and each year the human population grows. Nevertheless, people have retained their respect for wildlife, and wolves roam the landscape free and clear. But increasingly, it's a landscape stripped bare of the wolf's traditional prey. Wolves here may be forced to prey on livestock, and with a single goat or sheep valued at 6 months' income, it's rare to see livestock left unguarded. While many children must look out for themselves. To Dr. Singh, a starving wolf has the best of all reasons to become a man-eater.
Once a carnivore is forced under ecological stress to attack a man, they discover that man is the easiest prey. Also, they discover that beneath its colorful clothes, it also carries flesh and blood, and which can be eaten.
If he was to save the children of Uttar Prudesh, Singh would have to catch the killer fast. But it wouldn't be easy. The government demanded proof before Singh could shoot a wolf. And terrorized villagers now ridiculed his theory, believing that if it was a wolf, surely Singh would have caught it by now. To them, it had to be something larger than life, something they were utterly powerless to stop. When the authorities went to the scene of yet another attack, the victim's mother made an incredible claim. She had seen the killer, and it wasn't a wolf.
It was dark, and he came from there. He was wearing black clothes. He seemed to look like a man. His face was covered with some cloth. I remember his hands. They were like claws. It was about 2 o'clock in the night. I was fast asleep. When he pulled on Babita, the cot moved a little and I woke up. He was pulling her by the neck. And she said, "Ah, ah." I reached for her hand and leg, but he grabbed her like this and he dragged her away from me. Then he hit me. I cried out, "He's taking Babita! He's taking Babita!" Everything happened so fast. He hit me so hard I fell. Then he took her away.
In the morning, the body of a child was found. It was Babita. Word that the killer was a man-like creature with supernatural powers spread like wildfire. Everyone spoke in hushed tones about a killer they called the Manhai.
We saw it with our own eyes. He can jump into the sky.
He has fiery red eyes that glow in the dark.
He has flashlights shining from his knees.
He sprinkles magic dust in the eyes of the mother and father so they fall asleep and cannot shout or seek help.
People say he's killing the children for their kidneys and the blood.
To villagers, this supernatural killer could do anything, could be anyone. No one was above suspicion.
There was this woman who had money in her bag. She was giving the child money. Some people thought she was trying to lure and kidnap the child, so everybody panicked and ran to help. But some of them got carried away.
You killed her?
Yes.
She died?
Yes, she died.
Then, in village after village, the witch hunt began. Some 20 innocent people were beaten to death.
It's unbelievable how emphatically, convincingly they tell us that no, they saw it happening. It's unbelievable that.
With a supernatural creature on the loose, Singh's argument that the killer was a wolf fell on deaf ears.
It was definitely a man. We saw it with our own eyes. It was only 2 yards away. Surely we can tell if it was an animal or a man.
It's a human. It was a man who wore black clothes and came wearing a veil.
And they don't believe that they are innocent wolves. They call them our wolves. They can't do that to us.
Coming up, for the terrorized villagers, any suspicious person could be the culprit. Their frustration boils over and spills onto the local police.
He desperately needed the villagers' help. He needed thousands of eyes to watch over the fields and along the riverbanks where the killer might hide. But no one would help Singh kill an animal they believed to be innocent. Worse yet, Singh knew that only the killer's capture could prevent the countryside from erupting in further violence. Villagers had already taken to the streets over the death of a 4-year-old child in the village of Alea. When his parents tried to press murder charges against the Manhai, the stage was set for trouble.
The people protested, saying it's a human that's killing our children. But we told them it was an animal. They said, "You're not doing anything."
With no one to turn to, the frustrated parents carried the child through town. A large crowd quickly formed. Angered by the failure of the police to stop the killing, the crowd began protesting. Emotions ran high.
We rushed to the scene to break up the crowd. The people were shouting. They said if we won't catch the Manhai, we must be helping him. Then they turned on us.
The crowd savagely beat the policeman. Only 2 officers escaped by running into the fields.
It was too dangerous to stay there. They said, "Kill them all and burn them in their jeeps." We had to run. If we hadn't run, 20, 25, 50 people would have died, and the situation would have gotten out of control.
Then the mob set fire to 3 police jeeps and a bus. In a matter of minutes, 1 villager was dead and 6 policemen were critically wounded, beaten beyond the point of recognition. Uttar Prudesh was on the verge of anarchy when Singh went to the temple of Kushfira to investigate the disappearance of another young boy.
The child was killed in that hut, and we were looking for the body. We found the half-eaten body. And then following the footprints from there, we reached the den site.
This was the break Singh had been waiting for. It was a wolf den, and nearby he found what appeared to be parts of the boy's body. Singh believed he had found the killer's lair. At last the authorities agreed. They allowed him to kill the wolves at the site. Singh's men dug out the den, captured a wolf pup inside, and decided to use it as bait. Lured by the cries of the pup, the adults drew near. Singh's men shot 2 on sight. After 4 months of unrelenting terror, everyone believed the case had at last been cracked.
We thought we have succeeded in eliminating the aberrant pack of wolves, and we called off the operation.
Word of Singh's success spread quickly from village to village. The quiet rhythm of life seemed once again restored. But it was all an illusion. Just days later, the killer struck again. Dr. Singh was devastated. He resumed patrols immediately, but Singh's confidence was shaken. Had he killed the wrong wolves? Or was it something far worse? Was there an entire pack of man-eaters on the loose? Fearing the worst, Singh stepped up efforts to catch the killer. He set up ambushes along the trails leading from the villages to the river. Live goats were used as bait to lure the man-eater within shooting range. Still, no matter how close they got, the killer always seemed to vanish before their eyes. The people of Uttar Prudesh were convinced that no one could protect their children. Their once peaceful world had become a nightmare of fear and death. By midsummer, 53 children had been attacked. The death toll stood at 32. Parents everywhere kept their young ones close. Schools were closed. No one let their children walk alone in the fields.
Coming up, Dr. Singh takes a gamble. Can he and his men finally stop the killing?
Unable to tell if he was hunting one man-eater or several, he ordered his men to shoot every wolf they encountered.
We wanted to eliminate the man-eater pack as quickly as possible, even if 1 or 2 innocent ones got killed.
Singh's men shot several wolves, but the killing didn't stop. He called in Dr. Y.V. Jalla. Jalla still wasn't convinced that wolves were responsible for the deaths. But shortly after he arrived, another child was killed. When Jalla came on the scene, he was stunned by what he found.
I was really shocked when I saw the tracks of the animal which had killed that child. When we saw the body, it was definitely killed by an animal. It was partly consumed, not partly, almost wholly consumed. The viscera was gone. There was just the head and the thorax which remained. It was a very small boy. And we found evidence in the village at the site of the attack, as well as near the body. For the attack was done by a large canid. The prints were of a large canid. We collected hair from the bodies and clothing of children which were attacked, and electron micrographs, which I have here with me.
Jalla compared electron micrographs of the killer's hair with hair from each of the suspects. Like a fingerprint, the evidence left no doubt about the identity of the killer.
They don't match up with dogs, or with hyenas, or leopards, but they match, or with jackals. They match up with wolf hair. So we come to a conclusion, obviously, that the attacks were done by wolves.
But Jalla's confirmation of Singh's long-held suspicion would not save lives. A killer was still at large. Singh decided to take a gamble. He halted the patrols and posted his men in the 20 most vulnerable villages. On the night of October 15th, the 12th wolf was shot. It was a male and the largest wolf shot to date. According to Singh, it was an alpha male, the leader of a man-eating pack. With the death of the wolf, the killing finally stopped. 76 children had been attacked. 46 had died. After 7 long months, the fear that had once gripped the region at last began to fade. But still, several mysteries remained. Had one wolf or many been responsible for the killings? For Dr. Jalla, a single wolf was to blame.
The child-lifting animal was either a wild wolf, which had lost its fear of humans, or it was a captive wolf which was set loose by someone, or it was a wolf-dog hybrid. We will never know out of these 3 what the reality was.
But for Singh, the larger mystery was why. What could have happened in the days before the first attack that would lead any wolf to prey on a child? In the village of Daryaganj, where the first child was killed, Singh heard an intriguing story.
We discovered that people of the village attempted to burn the dens and pups of the wolves living in this area.
Just days before the first child was killed, the villagers approached a wolf den and found pups inside. Having recently lost livestock to the wolves, they decided to destroy the den and kill the pups. As flames and smoke filled the den, the pups were trapped. Then they tried to escape.
They could not run away because their feet were already burned, and they were killed, 2 of them.
The villagers beat the partially burned pups, then took the bodies back to the village. Singh believes the parents then searched for their young ones and followed the pup scent trail back to the village.
And tired, not able to hunt, perhaps they saw children playing, and under the stress, they lifted one of them.
We may never know what caused a wolf to become a man-eater and kill the first child. But in this land where so many people live side by side with so many animals, the balance of nature is precarious. Even the slightest of shifts can take a heavy toll on both sides.
We buried our son and Keith at the river's edge. Then we honored his memory.
There's not a day goes by that we don't think about our son.
But there are always two sides, no matter how tragic the story.
Wolves are highly endangered. There are very few wolves left where there used to be many once. But the planet is being conquered by just one species.
As its population continues to grow, India must make room for its natural wonders before the tide of its humanity forever sweeps them from the land.
That is the fortunate part about India, that in spite of too many human beings, everybody firmly believes that earth belongs to all species which are native to Indian soil.